94%, fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 7.8 on IMDb, and 95 on Metacritic. That's the critical acclaim for. Hi everyone, this is Roy Review, and today we are talking about One Battle After Another. Adapted from the Vineyard by America's iconic dark humor novelist Thomas Pynchon, this film boasts a cast of A-list Oscar-winning heavyweights. We're talking Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, and Benicio del Toro, a trio of acting royalty. But there's one name that outshines even these Hollywood legends: the director, Paul Thomas Anderson, or PTA for short, a luminary of American independent cinema. He's got the charismatic flair to match his filmmaking genius and a filmography that speaks for itself. At just 42 years old, he made history as the first filmmaker ever to win Best Director at all three major European film festivals, with Punch Drunk Love, There Will Be Blood, The Master, respectively. And above all, as an artist, he possesses what matters most: a free-spirited, delightfully unruly creative mind. He can explore the rise and fall of the adult film industry through a metaphorical lens of sexual vitality and decline. He can also toss a surreal downpour of frogs into a somber family drama with seamless absurdity. Anti-mainstream, anti-formulaic, anti-heroic, his work is laced with dark humor at every turn. With PTA at the helm, you never know whether he's about to serve up a delightful surprise or a bold, boundary-pushing shock. This is quite simply the most electrifying opening scene on the big screen this year, bar none. As a woman's footsteps echo, a sweeping wide shot unfolds, split clean in two by an overpass. Beneath it, barbed wire fences enclose detained undocumented immigrants, a sign emblazoned with Immigration Detention Center hanging starkly in view. Above it, the woman glances down at the immigrants repeatedly, her face etched with a pensive look. Not a single line of dialogue is spoken. Yet the visuals alone hook the audience completely. There's an unmistakable sense of storm clouds gathering on the horizon. This woman is the very one about to unleash that storm. Her name is Perfidia, the leader of the far-left militant group, the French 75. She's set to spark a revolution that night, storm the detention center, and free the imprisoned immigrants. Pat, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, is one of her fellow revolutionaries, trailing close behind with a large bag of homemade bombs in hand. It's on this fateful night that they cross paths with their lifelong nemesis, the far-right extremist Loquejo, portrayed by Sean Penn. There's no denying that One Battle After Another is steeped in unapologetic political undertones. In just a few minutes, it weaves in a slew of burning political issues: immigration, minority rights, political polarization, tensions along the US-Mexico border, the brutal clash between far-left and far-right extremism, and more. As Francis Ford Coppola put it, it's a fictional thriller rooted in the stark realities of modern America. On the surface, that sounds dense, sprawling, and impenetrable, like it's only for serious film buffs. But don't let that put you off. Because PTA's direction is anything but dull, it's thrilling, witty, and downright entertaining. It's even unapologetically sensual, too. Take this iconic scene: the tense standoff between far left and far right. Perfidia levels a gun at Lockjaw and orders him. Lift them up. Lockjaw licks his lips and obeys, lifting them slowly. And no, it's not just his hands, it's his dick. What about Perfidia? A self-satisfied smirk tugs at her lips, a silent, triumphant, "I've still got it." PTA doesn't shy away from the messy, fractured realities of far-left and far-right extremism. His latest film is filled with a relentless cat-and-mouse game, far-left bombings and far-right manhunts back and forth. But rather than just depicting division, PTA is far more fascinated by uncovering the unexpected overlaps between these two ideological extremes. Overlaps that are physical, first and foremost a raw sex scene between Perfidia and Lockjaw that plants a crucial Chekhov's gun for the rest of the narrative. And overlaps that are psychological too, a shared obsession with desire, violence, and unbridled self-interest above all else. Lockjaw is the quintessential far-right extremist, rabidly nativist, a staunch white supremacist, hell-bent on defending the so-called pure-blooded Americans. Yet his deepest, most primal desires lie with people of color, black women, specifically, and he harbors clear homosexual leanings, too. This twisted affinity aligns perfectly with Perfidia, who preaches bodily autonomy at the top of her lungs even though she's married to Pat. As for Perfidia, a far-left revolutionary who stands on a moral high horse, loudly proclaiming her support for freedom, diversity, and minority rights. Yet she's little more than a terrorist who unleashes brutal violence under the guise of justice. When a black security guard tries to stop her from robbing a bank bang, a black revolutionary pulls the trigger and kills him cold.
Stop fucking moving, man.
In short, PTA doesn't pick sides in this film. He slaps both the far left and far right equally hard. He lays bare their hollow, grandstanding ideologies and the petty, self-serving greed that festers in the dark beneath every single one of them. Now, what about our protagonist, Pat? Instead of pinning him down with a rigid label, we have to understand him through the story itself. Most of the film centers on Pat 16 years later. After Perfidia's arrest and sudden disappearance, Pat raises their daughter alone. Father and daughter change their names and build a quiet life in a sanctuary city. This might just be Leonardo's funniest comedic role to date. He's out of shape, greasy, and utterly unkempt, trapped in a cycle of drug use and alcoholism, drifting through life in a stupor. He's a little like the stereotypical stubborn old dad, but only just one sharp glare from his daughter Willa, and he throws in the towel at once. Of course, he still doesn't hold back from warning Willa's dance partners. If you dare hurt Willa, I'll make sure your whole family pays for it. Yep, Pat's a total softie for his daughter, but then Willa vanishes without a trace. The good news? Willa is safe for now, scooped up in advance by Pat's former comrades from the French 75. The bad news? She's in constant mortal danger, with Lockjaw, their old nemesis, hunting father and daughter down relentlessly. Driven by his fierce love for his daughter, Pat, who'd been wallowing in apathy like a puddle of mud, finally rises to the occasion and embarks on a quest to rescue her. Once known as the Bomb King, a man who struck fear into the hearts of every enemy. Now, he's back in the game. A grizzled old operative taking on the modern world with brute force. Not a chance, because Pat's big comeback is nothing short of a comedy of errors. Take his attempt to jump out of a moving car to escape. For example, he's too scared, clinging to the car door for dear life, a total coward. Or when he tries to exchange the secret code with the French 75, he's completely forgotten it, and even the group can't help but roast him. You should have memorized the company handbook back in the day. So it's safe to say, stick to the core plot of a father saving his daughter, and you can still have an absolute blast with this film as a warm, funny family comedy, even if you don't grasp a single bit of the political subtext. But is times one battle after another times celebrated just for being funny? Obviously, it's far more complex than that. In fact, story-wise, the film doesn't seem to break free from the genre tropes we all know so well. Yet at the same time, every single scene feels uniquely striking and fresh. Why? Put simply, it's full of surprises. It's this masterful knack for crafting the unexpected that cements PTA's place among the greatest directors of our time. His impeccable command of audio-visual language, he's a genius at manipulating the audience's attention. Let's look at two perfect examples. When Leonardo's character comes out of hiding to save his daughter, the only person he can turn to is Willa's martial arts coach, Sensei, played by Benicio del Toro. What does he need to do in this desperate moment? Evade the military's relentless manhunt, charge a cell phone that hasn't been turned on in over a decade, and call the group he hasn't spoken to in years. How does PTA capture his overwhelming panic and disarray? With a tracking long take? The camera follows Sensei into his home, and through the shaky handheld lens, the perspective shifts constantly. Sensei unhurriedly organizes the orderly evacuation of the Mexican refugees sheltering in his house, all the while introducing his family one by one to Leonardo's character, who's scurrying around the frame like a cat on a hot tin roof. Leonardo's Pat pops up every now and then, scrambling to find a power outlet, his frantic, unsteady steps clashing with the piano music in the background, completely offbeat. You read that right, PTA's tracking shot isn't focused on Leonardo at all. This creates a palpable sense of impending chaos, of things teetering on the brink of falling apart. And it's this choice that lets us feel, in a single frame, both Sensei's unshakable calm and Pat's desperate, all-consuming anxiety. Even if you already know how bumbling and incompetent this father is, you can't help but feel his raw, unfiltered panic. As this panic builds and simmers, PTA finally leads us to time's one battle after another, Asterisks' climactic showdown, its most breathtaking sequence. A car chase through a winding, rugged mountain pass. Strictly speaking, this standout scene of the entire film isn't even a car chase at all, because none of the factions are locked in a clear game of cat and mouse. They don't even know which side anyone in front of or behind them is on. What we care about instead is the raw, unspoken emotion etched on every character's face. Will Pat find his daughter Willa? Will Willa spot the assassins closing in on her? How does PTA build this suffocating tension? With a score of dissonant, pounding drum beats and an ultra-low-angle first-person perspective, it sounds simple enough, right? But if you've ever driven a car, you'll know just how dizzyingly realistic this first-person perspective is in time's one battle after another asterisk. It follows the driver's gaze along the bumpy, undulating mountain road, leading us straight into one blind spot after another. And yes, this brilliant camera work isn't just for show, for making the scene look cool. It immerses the audience in a searing, unignorable realization. Whether you're a timid conservative, a far-left radical, or a far-right extremist, in this moment, we're all just along for the same bumpy ride, unable to see the road ahead. This powerful expression stems from PTA's own observation of our times. The world is changing so fast, I can barely keep up with it. That's why the tension we feel as an audience in this scene isn't the heart-pounding, thrilling excitement of a classic Hollywood car chase. Instead, it's the same profound sense of helplessness that PTA feels about the state of the world today. Since its release, Asterisk, One Battle After Another Times, has been showered with endless praise and acclaim. Some are stunned by its taut, evocative audio-visual language, others captivated by its seamless, fluid action sequences, and still others simply get lost in its hilarious moments, thoroughly entertained. It's no overstatement to say that it's already the undisputed frontrunner for next year's Academy Awards. Of course, that's not to say One Battle After Another is a flawless, unassailable masterpiece. In PTA's own filmography, it may not even rank among his very best. So why do I sing its praises so highly? The reason is simple. The current cinematic landscape is cluttered with generic, tedious, cookie-cutter drivel. Step into a movie theater, and what do you find? Sequels like Time's Superhero 28 times and Time's Zootopia 80 times are just like electric cars, quiet, eco-friendly, safe, but utterly soulless. Against this backdrop, Asterisk One Battle After Another Times shines like an unexpected beacon of light. And the root of this magic lies in PTA's enduring, unwavering fascination with one thing: people, human beings, plain and simple. The characters in Time's One Battle After Another Times have an undeniable undercurrent of ambiguity. They exude an air of unpredictability that keeps the audience guessing, constantly teetering on the line between good and evil, right and wrong, honesty and deceit. Take Lockjaw, the film's primary antagonist. PTA layers the character with countless subtle details, transforming what could have been a one-dimensional political symbol into a figure brimming with human vacillation and primal instinct. And it's impossible to talk about this role without praising Sean Penn's tour de force performance. He masterfully embodies the arrogance and complacency of a privileged old white man, and the unhinged neurosis of an ambitious social climber, bringing every nuance to life with breathtaking precision. The subtle tremor in his eye muscles as he spies on Perfidia is just as raw and authentic as the unbridled excitement on his face when he's on the cusp of joining an elite white male fraternity. Which begs the questions: how does Lockjaw truly confront his innermost feelings? To put it bluntly, did he ever love Perfidia? Was it physical desire, emotional attachment, or merely the toxic conquest of white supremacy? A white man asserting power over a woman of color. What really went through his mind when he realized Willa might be his daughter? We see Lockjaw spout endless threats and act with ruthless resolve time and again, yet we also catch constant glimpses of his hypocrisy and the unforeseen twists in his motives at every turn. What's the answer to these questions? Chances are, every audience member will have their own interpretation. Sometimes, the film even deliberately misleads us. Take Willa, Pat's daughter, for example. Before her true personality unfolds, the film plants two seemingly throwaway moments. First, we see her in a taekwondo uniform, fists clasped, listening obediently to her master's teachings. Second, we watch her teacher gush over her relentlessly, as her father looks on with tears brimming in his eyes. A sweet, obedient, well-mannered daughter? Then we witness her trading sharp barbs with her father, and that initial impression of docility cracks at the seams. This kind of character building is certainly a masterstroke of storytelling. When a character's next move is always a mystery, the audience's curiosity is ignited, keeping us hooked every step of the way. To put it plainly, at the core of PTA's creative philosophy, he always places the insight into and equal regard for real, flesh-and-blood people above all else. So much so that every character who could have devolved into a mere symbol is made to reveal the raw, genuine emotions hidden deep in their hearts. Consider Daniel Plainview, the oil tycoon in Times There Will Be Blood, Times a cold miser hollowed out by capitalism, who has shut himself off from all emotion. Yet during a baptism, he goes from evasion to crying out authentically, "I abandoned my boy." Or Frank T.J. Mackey, the misogynistic pickup artist played by Tom Cruise, in Times Magnolia *, he fabricated his entire backstory about his family of origin to convince his followers and even himself that his success and ideology were genuine. But when he visits his hated father on his deathbed, he breaks down in tears, screaming, "You piece of shit," over and over again. This is PTA's quiet, unwavering assertion in a cinematic age saturated with rigid ideologies. He has no interest in using film to push political agendas, settle scores, or vent petty emotions. Instead, he returns to the true essence of cinema: captivating storytelling, vivid, living characters, exquisite audio-visual craft, and raw life experiences that flow straight from the heart. This is how he conquers the audience. He always stays true to his artistic heart. This uncompromising attitude means he's only made a dozen or so films over decades. It also means that even as his fame has soared, he has always kept his distance from mainstream taste and never achieved widespread mainstream recognition. But in hindsight, it's precisely this stubborn dedication that allows us, in an age oversaturated with imagery yet starved for sincerity, to encounter a film like Time's One Battle After Another *. It reminds us that characters can indeed be deeply complex, and stories can be profoundly layered. Cinema can be more than just entertainment. It can be a genuine conversation with ourselves, with human nature, and with the world around us. That's all we have for One Battle After Another today. What other films would you like to dive deeper into? Feel free to subscribe to our channel and leave a comment down below. See you next time.